guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Why Scandinavian Countries Are Outperforming the UK in Every Way. So those are like fighting words, harsh words, true words. We're gonna find out, but I think like sounds a little harsh if you put it like that. It's like, well, Scandinavian countries are like better than you in every single way. It's like, okay, well, I'm sorry. Like, what do you want me to do about this? Maybe it's a good thing. It's like you should like to improve, and these are the areas of improvement. It's more like constructive criticism. But something like that, I'm a little scared. What do you mean like they're outperforming them? But I don't know. I'm scared. But let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
You might perceive the UK as the undisputed giant in the fields of technology and development. But do you know just how many things this country is lagging behind in?
Oh my God.
Over the last few years, Scandinavian countries have become significantly better than the UK in several different fields. So it makes
Is it because they're like earning more money or something?
you wonder, is the UK facing its own gradual downfall?
Oh my God.
In this video, we'll explore all the different sectors in which the Scandinavian countries are succeeding, but the UK is falling. In the UK, the National Health Service is supposed to be the great equalizer, providing healthcare for everyone, regardless of where they live. But in reality, there's a catch.
If you're like a tourist, do they help you either way, right? I think that's what my understanding as well. And obviously, if you're a resident, of course, like you're paying for this with your taxes.
And it's what some called the postcode lottery. The quality of care you receive can vary quite a bit depending on where you live. For instance, in a busy city like London, you might wait a long time for routine surgery.
That's usually the case with national sort of like health service, with public health services. I think all over the world it happens, but I think in the US that happens with public schools as well. Like if you have like depending on your postcode, like you depend, like it depends on like what school your kids can go to, and obviously like some districts like are better than the others. Some school districts are better, and it just depends on where you live. But with when it comes to like health services, I think that's the case, especially like in bigger cities. You have to wait a long time because there's like a lot of people in the line.
Then head to a rural area and you may have even more trouble, including delayed appointments and services stretched.
Okay, but I would assume again, because it's like, well, if you're a little town, what excuse would they have? There's like not enough people there, so maybe they should like get me in quicker, right?
Then, however, in some regions, this backlog is hitting poorer areas particularly hard, while others are faring a little better. This is a tale of two systems, one in each country, with patients stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time. But in Scandinavia, it's somewhat different. Denmark and Sweden, in particular, have healthcare systems that have a secret weapon: decentralization. Picture that you are walking into a clinic, no more dealing with the heavy bureaucracy of the nationally controlled healthcare system, but something else, something more tailored to the needs of your particular region. In Denmark, for example, public and private healthcare go hand in hand. Roughly 42% of Danes hold private insurance to cover service that the public system doesn't fully handle, like certain prescriptions or elective surgeries. This means they get faster access to the care they need, and the system can adjust to local needs more effectively. Sweden takes it
that should be good, but I'm wondering like how expensive it is to like have private insurance.
Step further by letting its 21 regions manage healthcare independently, which helps balance the quality of care across the board.
I think that's better just because, again, every region is going to know the specific sort of like how to handle their region better because they live there.
You can see how this keeps the postcode lottery issue at bay. Everyone, no matter where they live, has equal access to quality healthcare. But it's not just the structure that sets Scandinavian healthcare apart. This decentralized model also makes room for innovation. Denmark, for instance, encourages partnerships between the public and private sectors, which means more experimentation and improvements in patient care. The system isn't rigid, it's adaptable, and in healthcare,
I like that.
Adaptability is everything.
I love that. And if they work hand in hand, of course, you make better breakthroughs. It's like four hands work better than two.
Now let's talk about the one thing that the UK seriously needs to improve. In the UK, trade unions have been on a steady decline. In In fact, only about 23% of workers today are unionized.
Wow.
A sharp drop compared to a few decades ago.
Yeah, but I think
Imagine
that's
being
little.
a worker with little protection, your voice lost in the noise of corporate machinery. That's what it's like for many employees in the UK, where legislative changes dating back to the Thatcher era have left unions with little power to advocate for better wages or job security.
I think like the biggest enemy of the stuff, like the companies are unions, right?
Without the clout of strong unions, workers are left vulnerable to wage stagnation and fewer workplace protections. Wage inequality continues to widen, and many sectors of the economy remain untouched by collective bargaining. Contrast that with Scandinavia, where unions remain a force to be reckoned with. Think of a workplace where over 70% of employees are unionized, as is the case in
That's a
Denmark
lot.
and Sweden. Here, unions aren't just about securing better wages. Think of it as a partnership where unions work hand in hand with employers to create fairer, more equitable workplaces.
That's how it should be, but not a lot of companies would agree.
Even more impressive is something known as co-determination.
What is
A practice in Scandinavia where workers are actually represented on company boards. Employees have a voice at the very top of the company, influencing decisions that affect everything from wages to business strategy.
I've never heard of like any like this is the first time that I'm hearing of this, and it's incredible. Like someone representing like the workers' like interests, like right at the top. Like that's crazy.
It's a system designed not just for today, but for the long term, encouraging sustainable business practices that benefit both the company and its workers. Sadly, this
And I would imagine there's like a lot of negotiation, which is good.
idea of co-determination is mostly absent in the UK, where unions have little say in corporate governance.
Yeah.
This leaves UK workers feeling even more disconnected from the companies they work for, which naturally leads us to the next point.
I think yes, if you're like less connected, you just don't care. I mean, you work like I don't care about the outcome, so maybe I'm putting off like less effort.
Every morning, they get up, rush through breakfast and spend hours grinding away at work, only to come home exhausted with barely enough energy to enjoy their evening. This is the reality of many UK workers.
And that's crazy because I would think that's the US, and you're talking about the US and not the UK.
The work-life balance here has been a long-standing issue, with many people feeling like their life revolves around work instead of the other way around. It's no wonder that burnout and job dissatisfaction are becoming more common. Here's an almost unbelievable fact. The average full-time worker in the UK clocks in around 41 hours a week, and that's just the average. Plenty of employees feel
How much is that daily? I have to do the math.
the pressure to stay late or take work home with them. The result is stress, burnout, and a work culture that often values long hours over actual productivity. It's a recipe for disaster, both for personal well-being and for the companies that depend on these workers to be efficient and innovative. On
It's crazy because I think, like, seriously, are you the US?
the other hand, in Scandinavia, things look remarkably different. In Denmark and Sweden, the work week ranges from 35 to 40 hours. But
Wow,
here's the
that's
catch. They focus
very
on
little.
productivity, not just clocking in hours.
That's better, right? Because it's like you care about the job being done, not the amount of hours that you've worked.
Imagine being in a workplace where the goal is to get your job done efficiently so you can actually
Correct.
go home and enjoy your life.
More efficient means like you take less amount of time, right?
That's exactly what the Scandinavian approach is all about. In Denmark, for instance, only about 2% of employees regularly work long hours. It's not because they're slacking off, but because they've mastered the art of working smarter, not longer.
Yeah.
And what do they do with all that extra time? Well, they focus on leisure, family, and overall
They enjoy their lives.
well-being. Danes get to enjoy afternoons at the park with their families, take time for hobbies, or just relax at home without the stress of looming deadlines. That's a far cry from the UK, where many workers feel chained to their desks. Sweden has even experimented with something pretty radical, a 6-hour workday. And surprisingly, it didn't
Wow.
tank productivity. In fact,
Oh.
employees were not only more productive, but they were happier too. And let's not forget about
Of course I'm gonna be happier, but I'm surprised it works. Well, yes, maybe why aren't we doing this all over?
vacation time. Scandinavian workers enjoy a minimum of 5 weeks of paid vacation compared to that to the UK, where employees typically get 28 days. And you can see
Okay, so
why
long.
Scandinavians consistently rank amongst the happiest people in the world. It's not just about working less, it's about valuing life outside of work.
Yeah.
Something that feels almost revolutionary compared to the work culture in the UK.
Yeah.
This strange culture also leaks into other sectors, like the next one. But before we move on, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. In the UK, the education system can feel like it's all about discipline and testing. You can probably imagine rows of students with their heads down filling out standardized test papers, with teachers more focusing on maintaining order than fostering meaningful connections with their students.
It depends on the teacher, right? And the method of education being used.
The emphasis on standardized testing means that from a young age, kids are taught to think about grades, assessments, and
That's
rules. Sure, discipline has its place, but what about emotional growth? What about creating an environment where students feel safe and supported? In contrast, Scandinavian schools take a completely different approach. Over there, the focus isn't just on academic achievement, but also on building trust between students and teachers. Teachers are encouraged to get to
That would be ideal, right? To get the balance of both.
know their students on a deeper level, to understand what makes them tick, and to create a learning environment that feels inclusive and supportive.
And besides, each person is going to be different, and each one has its own, I'm having a hard time with this, but maybe I'm good at others. So a good teacher should hopefully help you figure that out and help you take advantage of the things that you're good at. And maybe it's not just about being good at everything or just getting good grades. It's about fostering abilities that you have, naturally, actually.
This leads to a classroom where students feel valued not just as learners but as individuals. However, many other things affect the children in the UK, as you're about to see. In the UK, there's a pretty large welfare system, but here's the thing, it's not quite as robust as those in Scandinavian countries like Denmark and Sweden. It's like a safety net with a few holes in it. There's help, but not always enough to catch everyone who needs it. In terms of investment, the UK spends about 20 to 24% of its GDP on welfare. That's a huge number on paper, but when you compare it to Denmark and Sweden, where spending hovers around 26 to 28%, the difference becomes...
But it's only 5% of a difference, or 6. I don't think that's that much of a difference.
Noticeable.
At least on
More than
paper.
the money, it's about quality and the range of benefits people receive. For
That's
instance, people in the UK frequently complain about the system failing in important areas such as healthcare, child benefits, and in unemployment support. One big reason for this is the fact that the UK's welfare system is deeply centralised. On the top, decisions on how welfare money is spent are one size fits all. That's the problem, though. What's good in one place doesn't necessarily apply to another. Now let's see what Scandinavia is like. Many would say that Denmark and Sweden have what could be called a dream welfare system.
Yeah.
What if you lived in a country
But I think it's hard because they are their whole system is based on that, and I think it can be hard to replicate somewhere else.
without crippling health costs, no student debt, and the best benefits for children and pregnant women so that families can flourish? These countries have learned to marry people and private partnerships to deliver high-quality services that are not only efficient but sustainable. Inefficiency is a big part of the problems in the UK, especially in the public sector. For instance, the National Health Service has been under huge pressure for years, but you might not know that it's been stretched by underfunding and an aging infrastructure. Often,
Why don't they just upgrade it and pour more money on it?
when you try to reform the public sector, you cut the costs, but that doesn't mean things get better. In fact, it almost always ends up leading to more inefficiency and poor quality service. Compare that to Denmark and Sweden. These countries are forward thinking on public sector reform, particularly in healthcare and tax administration. For example, in Denmark, they've embraced public-private partnerships, which means innovation isn't just allowed, it's expected. New IT systems, streamlined services, and new focus on productivity have modernized their healthcare system. Denmark has done it even as their population ages. They've ensured that their public sector can still keep up with demand. Sweden has also made significant reforms, particularly in healthcare. Since the late 1990s, they've allowed private providers to enter the market, which has led to shorter hospital wait times and more efficient service delivery. And here's an interesting twist. They've introduced co-payments for healthcare services. This helps ensure that resources are used efficiently. But they've also put caps in place that low-income citizens aren't left behind. These reforms make their welfare system sustainable even when times are tough economically. So what can the UK learn from all this? Well, by adopting similar reforms, the UK could potentially address its public sector inefficiencies and improve the long-term sustainability of its welfare system. In any case, it's not about copying the Scandinavian model exactly, but rather learning from their successes and finding a way to apply those lessons in a way that works for the UK. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to watch these other videos.
I think like the most shocking part to me about this video is that I like when they were talking about the UK, I was like, isn't like the problems that the US is facing or has faced for like a bunch of years? So I would think like I didn't know it was that bad in the UK. Basically, that's my main takeaway. It's crazy because I thought that they had it better. So this is a bit of like an eye-opening experience to me because it's like, wow, I didn't really, again, maybe if compared to the US, I think obviously the UK is like miles ahead. But if you compare the UK with Scandinavian countries, then they're the ones lacking. And obviously the US and Scandinavia, well, the comparison is like, well, of course they're going to blow them out of the water. But I think, again, it's like very eye-opening. I don't know if it's that bad because I'm like, okay, is it bad in comparison to like the Scandinavia? Or again, it's just like bad in general because again, it's crazy. Like think about people, like they have like delays in getting help. But again, I think that's usually like the norm in other places. Like you already mentioned that. It's like when you have like national sort of like public services, it can be hard to get in because obviously it's a system that has to take into account millions of residents and people that live there. So you are like waiting in line like 6 months, up to like 6 months or even a year, 8 months, or even even a year for a surgery because they can until they can get you in. And I mean that in like extreme cases, sometimes it's like, yes, you have to wait also like for a referral. Like if you go to a doctor and they refer you, maybe it's like 2 months of a wait, like they don't get you in like super quickly. So it is, you know, that shouldn't be the case. And I understand that, but I think it's normal to me just because I know that that's the case in a lot of places. Although again, it's like if you compare it to like Scandinavia, it's like, oh wait, like it can be done in a more efficient way. Like it's not it shouldn't be that the case. So like you have to wait 6 months or up to like 3 months, 6 months, or you have to wait a long time until they can get you in. Like there's a more efficient way. So it shows that yes, it can be done. However, I do understand, and like they mentioned, like it's not about like copying the system specifically, because I think Scandinavia specifically, I think like Sweden and Denmark, which were like the focus in this video, like yes, you can't replicate those systems in other places because it's hard, and each country has its own like the specific like things that make it hard. But it's about adapting. It's like, what can we learn? And like these are the main like takeaways, and this is how they do it. So let's just adapt this to our system, to something that makes sense for us. Because obviously if you try to like copy paste this, of course it's not going to work, because each country has some like little things. So it's like, no, of course it's not going to work. That you need to actually adapt. But the fact that they can also like that they do it, it shows that it can be done. And maybe like not even just like do a whole reform, but maybe just like, again, make little changes, and that can make like a huge difference, I think. Especially, I think like it sucks. Like for instance, like the healthcare thing and the welfare, apparently the welfare system as well, that it just depends on what area you live. And you know, obviously if it hits obviously poor people and people with less resources, of course it's going to hit them harder than other people that maybe have like that live a little bit more comfortably. However, it sucks that it depends on like which area and what region of the city or of the country you live, because everyone should obviously everyone should get the same, everyone should be treated the same, so everyone should get like the same treatment. So it sucks that it's just like, no, because you live in like in a bad area, so it's like, no, I'm sorry, like you like they say, it's like you didn't win the lottery, so it sucks. It shouldn't really be like that. And obviously it sucks. The work-life balance, I thought it was a little bit better than the US, but like the way they were speaking about this, it's like, oh, so it's like the US where it's all like grind, and it's expected, like the companies just like expect you to work like extra hours, and you have to be constantly on top of things, and you're expected to work sometimes like, and I've never really understood this. It's like, yes, they want you to work like more amount of hours, and instead of like, yeah, but I already, like, if I can do my work like more efficiently, why and in less amount of time, why are you expecting me to like work longer hours? That doesn't make sense, because again, being efficient means that if I can finish my job earlier, and if I'm taking like less amount of time, people are going to be happier, and it's going to be more efficient, and it's going to long term, like it's going to also help you. Hey, if I did this, maybe I can do something else. And it creates like a less stressful environment and happier people make happier employees. So it's like, I've never really understood the thing about like, oh, you have to work such a long amount of hours, because like if you can do your job in less amount of time, then why wouldn't you? Like, why are you as an employer, like, why wouldn't you want this? Like, that's crazy. And the whole education system, yes, I think, again, like a good teacher hopefully should foster the students, and it's not just about like academic sort of like, oh, you have to get straight A's, and it's like, no, it's not even about that, because obviously, again, each student's gonna have its own things that they're gonna be better at, and it doesn't like, no, maybe you're like bad at writing or reading, it's like, oh, you're a failure. It's like, no, sometimes like people have like different disadvantages and advantages, and good teachers should foster them, and be more like, oh yeah, you're maybe a little bit like, you're better at this, let's foster that and let's focus on that. But I think that also depends on the teacher, depends on the school as well. It just depends. I don't think you can see those, especially it just depends. Sometimes in the public, sort of like public schools are maybe not that good. I don't know how it is in the UK, but I think sometimes private schools tend to be better. I think that depends on the country. Some countries are the opposite, and like private schools are better, and because the public system is like not good, and private schools are like, no, they're actually bad. In some places it's the opposite, like private schools tend to be better, which shouldn't, right? Because again, the government should take care of like, of their education, because education tends to be like, it's everything, because you're creating the people that are gonna like be running this country in like 30 years. But that's a whole other story. Again, my main takeaway is that I didn't know the UK had it that bad, which was surprising to me. So this was a very enlightening video. But that was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.